Thank you. Thank you very much. That one, yeah. I think we just goes talking now.
We'll get to talking.
Just talking here now.
Well, that was magnificent.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here. Like, just imagine I had my apprenticeship in the pubs of Atlantic Canada. How many gigs I've done that were in places way less cool than this one. But way more cool in other ways. Thank you, Dorothy, for doing this. Thanks, Sarah. I'm sorry, you probably have questions. How does this work?
I have a few questions. Just
I feel
couple.
I feel like I broke it already.
Yeah, we're going to just go home now. It's funny because I have never been to Newfoundland. I've never been to the East Coast.
Well, it's far. It's
It is
far.
far.
And I've been saying, for a number of years that Canada, I've crossed it lots of times in every kind of vehicle. And I think the solution I've come up with is every province has to give up 250 kilometers. That's it.
Just slice it off the end.
PEI gets a buy, but Ontario and Manitoba have to make it up. Everyone else got to give up 250. Just chop it out, flick it somewhere, up to you. But the result will be that Vancouver will be a 2-hour flight closer to St. John's.
I think that's a very wise
It is
idea.
wacky, though. Like we were talking about just before we came out. I'm further away from my house right now than if I was in Berlin. Tofino is further away from my house than Moscow. It's wacky, like how big the country is. And so when people tell me, years ago when Great Big Sea started and we were going across the country, when we were younger, when people would say, I've never been to Newfoundland, I would always say, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Come on, you got to go to Newfoundland. But I go like, oh yeah, now that I'm it all, I go, oh, it's totally reasonable that you've never been to Newfoundland. It's very far from here, and it's really big, and it's hard to get to, and it's challenging, and that is some of the most awesome things about it.
Indeed. Well, all my sort of knowledge of Newfoundland comes from various forms of culture, like whether it's Michael Crummey's novels or when I was growing up, Codco was like the big thing. So funny, when I was reading your book, I kept hearing like Babylon Mall was kind
At
of
the
weird.
mall, at the
Babylon Mall,
where the sun don't shine and the rain never falls. Ain't gotta think about nothing at all. You
At
can
the
dance all day
mall.
to the music in the hall at the malls. Parking's free at the mall. You pay to pee at the mall.
That's the best line of all.
Oh. It's true. At the Avalon Mall, at one point, there was you had to put a dime or something in the door to get into pee, and
Yeah.
Newfoundlanders just went bonkers.
But it's interesting, in a relatively small province that's produced that many musicians and comedians and artists and singers and what the hell is going on in Newfoundland? How did you manage to create such, magnificent creative force?
Cultural outlet, yeah. I don't know, of course, and that's a good thing. I've heard lots of good theories, and my favorite one I heard from Mary Walsh. Mary from...
Yeah.
And Mary figures that it's a combination, I shouldn't quote her, but the point that she made was there's two parts of it. First of all, and I practically, this first one means a lot to me because I grew up in Tale Harbour, this little fishing town, 500, thank you very much, and the 500 people or so, and I was born into the band, right? The Doyles are the band. They were the band before I was born, and they're the band now, and they'll be the band long after I'm dead, and I'm just one of them, and that's fine with me. It's fantastic. And because every third or fourth town, especially down the southern shore, North Coast, Newfoundland, all these more isolated places, nobody is coming. Friday night comes and you need a dance. Well, nobody is coming to play for you. You have to do it yourself. And you also have to write your own books. You have to tell your own stories. You have to put on your own radio shows. You have to do. So we got good at it. Even like for a couple of centuries before Canada joined Newfoundland in 1949.
Something like that.
Okay, no, I thought I'd get something flicked at me, but we're good. So that's one part of it, and I think what Mary Mary's point about the other part of it is that we used to be our own thing. So you could be the best you could be the best, singer from Switzerland,
Yeah.
or the best singer from Canada, or the best singer from Newfoundland, right? Because we were our own thing,
Yeah.
right? So people tried to be the best at that out there, and we're disproportionately represented in the country in the cultural mosaic, whether it's Tom hosting the national radio show, or just after Rex finished, just before him, and there hasn't been, I don't think there's been a time in my lifetime, certainly not in my adult lifetime, that some Newfoundland show, or at least Newfoundland heavily occupied show, is not on the national broadcaster. We have someone, it was like every other host that's on any award show on television is hosted by a Newfoundlander,
Yeah.
and the comedy genius of Kako and all that stuff, like you mentioned. So, yeah. So I believe Mary is right. It's a combination of we had to do it ourselves because no one else would do it for us, and we had an opportunity to sort of elevate ourselves internally, because we could compete with being the best. We weren't competing with people from Saskatchewan or British Columbia or whatever. We were competing with ourselves, and so up we went.
Do you think growing up in a sort of smaller, more rural part of Canada, allows you to kind of dream big and yearn for those sort of outside places? Because I know, even though you love Newfoundland, obviously, and you're still there, is there that desire to kind of get out and see the world?
Yeah, well, when I was 15 or 14, I wanted to do two things. I wanted to play music and I wanted to travel. And I'm 56, and I want to play music and travel. I'm serious.
I think you have succeeded.
Yeah, and so growing up in this town, and we were close to the city, but we didn't have a car, right? And Petty Harbour is not the kind of place you can easily walk in and out of.
Yeah.
It's surrounded by hills on three sides and the ocean on the other. So, and we didn't have a car to drive out of it. So I spent a lot of time in it as a young person, wondering what else there was, right? And, I would look at Hockey Night in Canada, and I'd see Toronto and New York and these cities that they would take pictures of during the hockey, and then they would show Montreal,
Yeah.
and everybody would get dressed up, in fur coats, and they'd be smoking right behind the hockey players and all that, and I'd be like, I think I want to go to Montreal, man. I mean, all the ladies got their hair all done up watching the hockey. Guy Lafleur is going down with the hair blowing. I'm like, I think I want to go there. That'd be good. But yeah, so I think you're right. There's I don't know. I can't speak for everybody in that regard, but the wanderlust is big.
Yeah.
It's bigger if it's so far away from you, and everything is far away from you, right? And it still is, to a certain degree. But certainly when I was 13 or 14, everything felt far. Halifax.
Yeah.
Halifax was almost impossible to imagine getting to go to Halifax.
Well, it's always strange when you end up I don't know, a place like New York and Metropolitan Opera, and because you've heard it on CBC radio coming over the broadcast on Saturday afternoon, and then you realize it's a real place. It's real, and you have this kind of it's a very strange schism, I think, when you're sort of very far away from the world.
Well, I felt that there's few places in this book
Yeah,
that were
for sure.
for me were like going to L'Anse Meadows.
Yeah.
Finally in person was like going to Madison Square Garden or something for me, because I'd never been there, and I talked about it. When I had my gig at the Newfoundland Museum as a tour guide, I talked about these places in Newfoundland, but they were up the northern. I was never going to get there. How was I ever going to get there? And then I finally got to go see where the Viking settlement and all that was, and I was just and Red Bay, Labrador, and a couple other places, and Grossmore National Park, and all these places that it's just those were as far away from me as Paris, and especially in my young life, and so it was. I'm still that way. I'm still stoked. I love going to a place for the first time.
Yeah.
And I also love going back to a place and having my favorite spots. So you end up having your Vancouver, or your, I got here, yesterday morning, and I walked the entirety of the seawall in Stanley Park, because that's pretty awesome. A lot of healthy people here, by the way. Like old people too. Like they're I was walking, and I was 6 or 7 kilometers into it, and I was feeling pretty tired, and all these young healthy people were jogging past me. But there's one fella who was definitely 75 or 80, and he blew past me, and then the bastard lapped me. Jesus. Seriously. I almost tripped him up. I said, he comes by here one more time.
It's going down.
He's going down.
It's going down on that. So the book is very much a journey, obviously a physical journey, but also a journey through, the history of Canada, the history of Newfoundland, but also your own life. There's a lot of stories, about your growing up and being a teenage museum guide.
Most people, that's one of the dirty secrets about Alan Doyle. Is I did one of my first real job was I was 16, and I got a job at the Newfoundland Museum in St. John's as a tour guide, and I couldn't, a Doyle was going to get paid to talk. Like, this was probably the greatest family achievement that we'd ever done. And I'm serious, I couldn't, I remember I hitchhiked this town, and a teacher friend of mine in grade 10, was just finishing grade 10, so I turned 16 in May, and this teacher in St. Kevin's High School in the Goulds said to me, they're looking for people to be summer student tour guides at the Newfoundland Museum. And I was like, what is that? And she said, you got to show people around the museum. Or I was like, I'll do that. And so she said, you got to go do an interview for it. And I was like, what is that? And I did. And I hitchhiked to St. John's, and I was 16, and got a loan of my brother's shirt. And my sister Kim, I have 2 sisters. I call them FOMO and JOMO. And one of them hates missing stuff, and my older sister Kim is very sensible, and she loves missing stuff. She just thinks it's fantastic. And she was like, Alan, you got to put on a shirt. And I was like, I don't have a shirt. Anyway, long story. And I did the interview, and I sat there with these 2 ladies who were, turned out to be like Jorge, like they were the public programs officers for the Newfoundland Museum. And I sat there, 16-year-old from Tale Harbour, and they say, so you're applying for the museum interpreter job. And I was like, I don't think so. And they were like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, I thought it was like tour guide or something. It's like, yeah, that's what museum interpreter is. That's the one I want. And I was ready to tell him I could speak French too. I was ready to do it. Anyway, I answered a couple of questions, and they, about being in school, and said, what else do you do? And I said, I can sing. And they said, really? And I was like, yeah. And I stood up and I sang a song. I did. I got you the job. I did. And they gave me the gig. I was like, yes. I did. I swear to God. And so I was 16 years old. I started working at the Newfoundland Museum, and my job was tour guiding people around the museum, and in fact around, Newfoundland. And I absolutely loved it. Like, I loved that job, and I hated to leave it. I had it. Great Big Sea started in 1993, and around halfway through 93, I guess in September, when we were going to start touring on the mainland, we were going to go to Halifax, and I took a leave because I didn't have any holidays or whatever left, So I took a leave, and then I came back, and then I worked another bit in early in '94. But then the band was going on tour again. I took more leave, and then we got signed to Warner Music Canada and Warner Germany, and a deal in the States, and we were we were playing hockey rinks, for God's sake. And I went back into Margie, one of the ladies who had hired me almost 10 years ago, and I said, I think I need another leave. And she's like, Alan, I love that you still want to work here, but didn't you just get signed to a major label in Europe? It's like, yeah. And she said, look, I'm afraid that if you have this job as an option, something will go wrong over there, and you're out. And she said, if something goes wrong, come see me. We'll find. But I was so grateful to her for that because I loved that job so much, and I just loved, and it led to, you know, the joy of this book, which was going, in some cases, to revisit parts of Newfoundland and Labrador, but half the book was really places I'd never been. Like I'd never driven on the south coast of Labrador to like Red Bay and the Basque whaling settlements and all that stuff. And I'd never been out to Tale Harbour, even though I talked about these places for 10 years as a kid, you know, and I'd never been there. And like, so it was so cool to finally make it, you know, to those places.
What's the kind of boat that you...
A chalupa. Chalupa. You're welcome.
You're thrilled to see it.
I was, yeah, yeah.
Well, from those, you know, very auspicious beginnings, you've done all kinds of stuff, like, you know, in addition to Great Big Sea and acting in films and musicals and writing for 4 books, I think.
This is my 4th book. I can't believe it either, trust me. And, yeah, I know. Thank you.
I did look up, because I had forgotten that you were in Robin Hood with Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
So I looked up the scene that you're in because I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
And of course, you're looking very grim the entire time as Russell Crowe's
I didn't know what else to do. Yeah. It's me. If you want to,
did a good job.
Thank you. If you want to watch the Robin Hood and you want to find me, just look at the people talking in front. Just look over their shoulders. There's some guy behind them doing this.
You look legit.
Thank you.
I believed you.
No, it was fun. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. You know, I mean, like, and again, it all came from music. You know, because I met Russell in the early 2000s and ended up writing songs with him and going to Australia and producing a record, and we wrote songs for movies and Great Big Sea. And then he called me one day and said, "Hey, can you play the lute?" And I was like, "What? Can you play the lute?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." Like medieval lute. And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, I can play bazookas and mandolins and stuff. I'm sure I can play. What do you need?" Because I thought he needed like some song for a movie or something or whatever. He's like, "Now, can you come to LA next week and read for a part?" And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, we need an Irishy sounding guy." Swear to God, for this movie, who can play the lute and sing the news. And I was like, "All right." So I did. I remember I was in Ottawa, and I went to the Ottawa Folklore Center, and I bought a lute. Discovered I indeed did not know how to play the lute, but I learned some freaking quick. I'll tell you that. And I flew to LA, and I did a read for it and got the part, and I ended up in the movie. And it was funny. The first day on set was I flew from here. It was 1998, I guess, and the Junos were here, and Great Big Sea and Hawksley Workman and a few other people sort of closed the Junos. I can't remember what we played, like Gallows Pole or some Zeppelin song or something. And I left here, like the hockey rink or whatever, and I went to the airport, and I got on a plane, and I flew to London, over the friggin' North Pole, by the way. That's how they does it if you go to London from here. Scared the shite right out of me. Didn't sleep at all, and I got to Heathrow Airport and got picked up and went right to set and
delivered.
And the next thing I know was me and, you know, Ridley Scott and Kate Blanchett stood up talking to Russell Crowe, and here we go. I had a line that day. I'll never forget it. I thought I was just going to get costume on or something, you know, but I had a line in a scene. I'll never forget it. I was like right there going, and like there's like an ambush or something, you know, and like myself and Scott Grimes and Kev, who plays Little John, and Russell, we come upon this ambush, and like the people have been, you know, slayed down type thing. And we run over. I'm supposed to run behind the rock. Alan Doyle, who's my character, looks to Robin Hood and goes, I'm supposed to say, "Robin, they're French." Like, can you imagine me, like, this is my first day ever in a movie or anything, and I'm going through I'm looking at this script going, "Robin, they are French." "Robin, they are French." "Robin, they are French." "Robin, they are French." Like, I went through every possible thing in my mind about what it could be. And when we said action and we ran across and I had to shoot an arrow, which I did very cool. I sat down behind the thing. I looked over at Robin Hood and went, And I opened my mouth. And did you ever see the Simpsons, you know, with Buddy in the drive-thru who goes, "Would you like fries with that?" That guy. That's what came out of my mouth. Robin, fries. Yeah. And it went down from there for the next 4 months. But what an experience. It was amazing. But, you know, it was, again, it's just all part of the wanderlust, I suppose, that I've been so lucky to satisfy, both at home in Newfoundland and Labrador, like in this book, but also just coming here, you know, and it's the greatest blessing in my life that I got to do the two things I wanted to do when I was 14. Yeah.
Well, and the book is also, like, there's so much about, you know, the history of Newfoundland, but there's also what's happening right now, and in terms of Newfoundland kind of not necessarily reinventing itself, but kind of forging a new path.
That's right.
In a, you know, in a really interesting way, because like the Fogo Island Inn.
Yeah.
Jesus H, I've never seen it.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
amazing. Yeah, I mean, part of the sort of question I try to answer in the book is if I grow up in the old Newfoundland, you know, fishing towns with 400 or 500 people and, you know, a fish plant and a few dozen boats coming and going, you know, for 6 or 8 months of the year, you know, in which is exactly what Tale Harbour was like when I grew up. And then as soon as I sort of became an adult, you know, in my early 20s, the cod moratorium hit. And of course, all these coastal communities in Newfoundland and Labrador were effectively shut down in one day. Hundreds of them. And so, including Tale Harbour, and they had to immediately decide if they were going to continue or not, and if so, how? What were they going to do? And I mean that sort of in a grander kind of existential kind of way. But way before that, it was a very practical thing. Like people had to go to work.
Yeah.
Like people had houses to pay for and kids in hockey, you know, and all that stuff and so, yeah, so they, if that was the old Newfoundland, and that's what I've spent so much of my life talking about. Well, what's 20 years later, or 30 years later for that matter, what is the new Newfoundland? Like how, if I could pick a half dozen places and go to them and try to tell people about how they've redefined themselves since the cod moratorium hit. And as you say, Fogo, I start the book in Fogo because it's probably the greatest example of a place that was used to be one thing and now is something else. Yeah. And if most of Newfoundland was affected by the cod moratorium in the early 1990s, Fogo Island has had 20 cod moratoriums in the last 500 years. Like they've reimagined themselves and realigned themselves and reorganized themselves. First place to have a fisherman's co-op. Yeah. Like the first place to amalgamate their communities. So many things. And now, of course, they have this amazing inn and they have this ecotourism thing that's like world, global, you know, Oprah stays there and stuff like that. And yes, it's an incredible place, and just probably the most shining example of how a Newfoundland place has paved the future. Oh, that's new. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and some of those, I had to look up all the places that you were talking about, like, because I'd never, you know, Glenmorne or...
Fogo, Twillingate, Mountains Harbour,
and, you know,
all
like
around the circle. Either way. You can't, if you ever want to find out if there's any Newfoundlanders in the house, just go, Fogo, Twillingate, Mountains Harbour. That's it. Hip your partner Sally Thibault, hip your partner Sally Brown, Fogo, Twillingate, Mountains Harbour, all around the circle. Susan White, she's out of sight, her petticoat wants a border, old Sam Oliver in the dark. Hey, thank you very much. If you want to find out if there's Nova Scotians, by the way, in the audience, you could just go, oh, the year was 1778. I'm so sorry. It's like it's the easiest.
I have no idea what's going on.
No, fair enough. I don't know what the BC equivalent would be. Spirit of the West, fair enough.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I thought it would be some coffee joke or something. I'd be like, Fabulous.
And you make the trip with your wife and your son,
Yeah.
your then teenage son.
Yeah, and he's still my son Henry.
He's still talking to you.
He still speaks to me. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, myself and my wife
Yeah.
Joanne, we had Henry, and he was just latter part of his 17th year. He was 18 for most of these trips. We just figured we were running out of time when we convinced him to get in a car to go anywhere with us, and so that was part of it, was having to show him like where he's from, you
Yeah.
know, and because it's a weird thing to think of that someone like him, born in the city, in the internet world, would possibly know less about his own backyard than I
Yeah.
would.
Yeah.
But he does. Because he can, unlike, I couldn't look at Barcelona or, Toronto or Vancouver or whatever. I could only see what was, up the road and down the road, and then whatever I could hitchhike to, and then all that kind of stuff. So just as a 19-year-old, I knew more about Newfoundland and Labrador than he does. And I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I wanted him to see it, so we put him in the van and we drove 4,000 kilometers. And
Well, and sometimes you see it like through his eyes. We're thinking
Yeah.
about the story where you guys go to see the Viking, where the Viking
Yeah.
burial mounds are, and that sense of pride, right? That the Vikings vamoosed, but the people who settled in Newfoundland were tough as nails and
Yeah.
stuck it out.
I love it. I don't know what, I think I might have dumbed it down a bit in the book, but I remember I got in trouble, but I was like, saying to my, forgive me, there's no way to tell the story without swearing a little bit. So brace yourselves. But the whole story of the Vikings coming to northern Labrador, northern Newfoundland, and occupying next to St. Anthony and Lanson Meadows, and they were there for a few decades or whatever, and then they shagged off, because they figured there must be somewhere else that's easier than this. And I remember when I showed Henry it, and he said, "So we stayed and the Vikings left?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes like, I said, "Yeah." And he goes like, "So the Vikings were pussies." And I was like, "Yeah, we're tougher than the Vikings." I was like, "Totally." Yeah. It was like, I always, it wasn't a great parenting moment. What are you going to do? I don't know. I got in trouble for it. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Was it a challenge writing about, including them in the story? Were you afraid, or not necessarily afraid, but how they would sort of be perceived as, essentially as sort of characters?
My son was delighted. Like, he doesn't, as long as he sees his name in it,
Excellent.
He shares my
Yeah.
center of attention lust. So he's
Good
just
to know.
you can say whatever you want as long as I'm in it. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know you talk about Bill Bryson, I think, in the
Yeah.
as a sort of model of travel writing,
Yeah.
in terms of sort of just bringing people along.
Yeah, I love-
in terms of that voyage, right?
I love his books. I love the way he sort of takes you with him, and he doesn't it's not like a tourism fact check book or something. It's like, I walked into a pub in Australia, and this is what it smelled like, and this
Yeah.
is what it looked like, and it made me think of the thing when I was a kid, and next thing you know, it's 150 pages, and you're still in the porch of the pub, and it's just, I sort of always kind of thought I could do that.
Yeah.
Not as good as him or nothing, but that I loved it so much. I wanted to sort of, I guess the best way to say it is that this book is kind of modeled or inspired by his
Yeah.
writing style.
Well, it's a love song, really, the entire way through.
Yeah, I just love this. To feel like you went there with him. Like, the first time I read one of his books was a book called, it has two titles depending on where you're at, Land Down Under or Sunburnt Country or something. The one about Australia. And I read it before when I was going to Australia for the first time. And I was just thought it was so cool that it kind of informed my path around. And with this book, I've been saying that the home run is if people read it and like it. That's good enough for me. But the grand slam is if people read it and want to come behind me, and
Yeah.
to have this be part of their trip to Newfoundland. I think that would be a great result, personally, but also, it would complete the love letter to my own backyard.
Yeah. Well, I like it how you sort of pin in place with what you ate and what, hikes you did and, what kind of places you were sleeping and how hard it was to park the boulder trailer.
Yeah, that's impossible. Yeah, you're packing up a small trailer. That's impossible. There's only 3 people alive can do that. And they're all from Germany, I guess. I don't know. The other thing about it was, of course, I thought it would be a cool vehicle,
Yeah.
To describe to people so many of the wacky and weird things that Newfoundland and Labrador has, and some of its geography, and some of its custom, and some of its habit, and some, that I could show people some of the weird things that we do all the time and we think is normal, and this would be a good way to talk about them, in the chapter about Fairyland, I explain how,
Yeah.
we go up the southern shore. And again, it was one of my little fella, he's like, "Did you say up to the south?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "That south is down." I was like, "Oh yeah."
Sorta.
Yeah, up the shore. Never crossed my mind. And he's like, and then I said the thing, we also say down on the Labrador. That's the common thing for fishermen to say home is, we're going down on the Labrador, which is nothing if not north, but here we are, no wonder we got our own time zone, for freak's sake. Like, we have in Newfoundland and Labrador, for the case anyone doesn't know, we have a holiday that is weather dependent.
Oh, I know what you're going to talk about.
Yeah. The Royal Newfoundland Regatta is a rowing event that happens in St. John's. It's the oldest continuously running sporting event in all of North America. And which is another thing we love to do, is just randomly claim stuff. The regatta happens on a lake in Kitty Vitty Lake, where no one knows why it's called Kitty Vitty. That's another wonderful, wacky thing about Newfoundland. We name stuff and no one knows why. And the race is a rowing race that happens on the lake. And what comes along with it is this, originally it was like a fundraising garden party for various charities in St. John's area. So you would, if you were, like the Boys and Girls Club or what have you, would probably have like a game of chance where you'd raise money. So this garden party became an important part of the regatta, and now it's, of course, it's a full-on fair, if you will. But so what happens is, what the result of this, but it only happens if the weather is good enough for the guys to do and the gals to do the rowing race, right? So it has led to what I affectionately call, I think I talk about it in the book, about the regatta roulette, which is the greatest night out. If not the greatest night out, it's definitely the best Tuesday in the world. Because the first Wednesday in August is supposed to be the regatta. So of course, if you're, like us Newfoundlander people, when Tuesday night comes and tomorrow might be a holiday, well, you got to go out, right? And you go downtown, and you're like, oh. And you're getting into it downtown. And the George Street Festival is on, by the way. It's full on downtown, town full of people. And of course, you get into it. And at 6 o'clock the next morning, everyone sort of rolls over, turns on their radio traditionally, and goes like, oh, please, please, please. Because at 6 o'clock in the morning, the regatta committee makes the call as to whether or not the regatta is going to go ahead or not. And guess what stops the regatta? Nope. Wind. Think about that for a second. The regatta gets canceled if it's windy in St. John's, Newfoundland. Windy. It's always windy. So everyone's like, so invariably 6 o'clock in the morning, everyone's hungover. And they get the call, oh, regatta's a no-go, the winds are up. Ugh. A town full of people drag themselves to work, right? They butcher themselves through until lunchtime, and then the early afternoon, they're like, oh man, tomorrow might be the regatta. So what are you gonna do? You gotta go out. Out you go again, second night in a row. 6 o'clock Thursday morning. Oh, Jesus Christ. One time the regatta happened on Sunday. I'm convinced to this day the emergency rooms were full in St. John's. There was so much dehydration. But that's the wacky place where I'm from, where you have it's going to be a great holiday tomorrow, unless it's windy. Then we'll do it the next day. I think that's awesome. Like anybody foolish enough to participate in something as cracked as that, that's the people that's where I want to live. That's brilliant.
I mean, there's so many stories in this book. It's a hoot and a half. But of all the things that you sort of discovered, what were the things that were most surprising to you, other than the sheer damn size of the place?
That was a big one, and I'm embarrassed to admit how, even for me, it was because I'd never really driven the entirety of the highway system in Newfoundland and Labrador. I still haven't, but we did drive from St. John's all the way over to Grossmore National Park, which is about 8 or 9 hours. We turn right and you go up the Northern Peninsula. And by the time you get to St. Anthony, another 300 or 400 kilometers, well, more than that actually, another 3 or 4 hours have passed. And then you take the ferry over to what I assume was the south coast of Labrador, but it's not. The interprovincial Newfoundland ferry lands in Quebec. Oh. So, think about this for a second. Go into look at lands just on the border, on the Quebec side of the border in a town called Blanc-Sablon. And you're going over there and it's like you're looking at your watch and it says noon and the ferry lands in Blanc-Sablon and it's 10:30. And you walk 5 steps to the right and it's 12:02. If there's anywhere else on planet Earth where you can walk across a 90-minute time zone, I'd love to know where it is. And then you drive across the Southern Labrador Highway, which is like the Mad Max Road. Like it's the most impossible stretch of highway I've ever been on in my life. Like it's just, like there's nothing at all. Like there's not a shed, there's not a pole, there's not a tree. Like you pass moss on a rock and you're looking at it for 2 kilometers. Because and nobody passes you except the odd guy bent over a motorcycle with the survival bags on it, or somebody with a Jeep with gas tanks strapped to it. And we were going along in our 2018 Honda Odyssey minivan. This is going to be bad, man. And then you get to Mary's Harbour. And then you get in a small boat and you go out 15 or 16 kilometers into the ocean to get to Battle Harbour. And it's like, that's all in one province. That's one day we did that. Like it's just, by the time we did it and turned around and went back, it was almost 4,000 kilometers. It's a territory of a place. And and as my son, again, like in the eyes of babes or what have you, like he said, and I asked him what he thought about it. He said, this is a really big place with not many people in it. And I was like, wow. Like, if only everyone in Newfoundland and Labrador understood that fact. This is a very big place with not many people in it. The expectations that people would have of, government services and stuff would completely change if they just understood that the reason why the road is not very good going down to, such and such is because there's nobody here. And it's the geographical and the realities of the population sparsity was a surprise even to me, Like you imagine the map of Labrador and how big that is, right? And there's just over 30,000 people in all that land, right? And then you come down to the northern peninsula of Newfoundland, at the point that sticks up past, Grossmore National Park or whatever. There's less than 10,000 people on the northern peninsula. So that entire thing has around 40,000 people in it. I try to remember exactly my numbers. They're in the book, but forgive me if I get this wrong. But the province of Newfoundland and Labrador is bigger than the country of Germany. Germany has 92 million people. Newfoundland Labrador has about 520,000. Like, it's wild. Like, it's how big it is and how few people there are in it.
Other places you still want to go?
In Newfoundland Labrador?
Yeah.
Oh God, yes. I didn't get to go to anywhere. Like, I still really haven't been to the coast of Labrador. I mean, I've been to Tale Harbour and I've been to Goose Bay in the airport, but I've never gone up the northern coast of Labrador. Which I've never gone to the national park on top, Torngat Park. I've been into Franceway on the south coast, the very south coast, but haven't been to Grey River or several of the other places that are along the south coast. Haven't really done any like adventure camping in the middle of, you know, the big Gander rivers and the middle part of Newfoundland, and I'm not, because I play mandolin for a living, and I'm just not tough enough for that. I'm not going to let I'm staying at the posh hotel down the road, you know, and the sheets are soft, and and I hate camping, as I describe in the book. But it's there's lots of places I would love to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we want to take some questions, so maybe we should open the floor at this point. So, yes, young lady.
Hi. You mentioned a little bit how you met Joanne in your book. I was wondering if you would share how you proposed.
How I proposed? Oh,
Joanne is Alan's wife.
Joanne's my wife, and we met in perfect band form. We met because one of the guys in Great Big Sea, Sean McCann, was moving into an apartment in a building, and she owned it. And then we were building a piece. We lived in various places in that house, and then a few others in downtown. And then we bought a piece of land on the edge of downtown, and we used to have a Christmas party. And then I asked her. We had the piece of land, but it was no house. We were about to start building a house. So I said, let's go up to the piece of land, you know. And it's like, what are we doing that for? I said, just come on. It was on Christmas Eve, or Christmas Day. To go, we were going over to my mother's for supper, and I said, well, and we went into the middle of the piece of land. I said, we should get married here in our party next Christmas. And she said yes, and we did. And to this day, it makes it really easy to remember our anniversary. Saves me a fortune. And to that end, my son was born on the 4th of July. It says. So all I got to do is take him anywhere in the States on his birthday and tell him I did all this for him. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Do we have any
Anybody else have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right there.
Which province has better music, Newfoundland or Nova Scotia?
Newfoundland. It is a very excellent question, though, because I'll be hung for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I come from the East Coast of Newfoundland, where it's a singing culture. And I think, like we were talking about earlier, we're disproportionately represented for entertainers and hosts and comedians and actors and personalities, as well as singers and songwriters, and storytellers and novelists, and we also play instruments, right? And I thought like singing songs and playing instruments go together, right? And I was like, well, we're awesome at that. We're some of the best people around. And then I went to Cape Breton, and I went, holy shit, we can't play at all. Like, we can't play our instruments at all. Like, the best fiddler we have in the entire province wouldn't get on the fireman's team over here. Like they are so, the bar is so ridiculously high. Like literally the guy who retired, I was at a party at the Barry McNeil's house one time, and they're all playing. Of course, they're just monsters. Like, they're so amazing. And they said, and they were kind of embarrassed that their Uncle Jerry or whatever was going to play. Oh, Jerry wants to play a few tunes. Give us a second here. And he was like, this guy had retired as a fireman. His hands like meat sausages. And he sits at the piano, and it's just like, I don't know anybody who can play piano that good. And he's not even a pro. Like, he was the fireman. And so the bar is, and then you go to like other parts, in the Gas Bay, for example, in Quebec, right? And I go like, well, we can't play button accordion like that. We play button accordion a certain way, but we don't do that. And like, and that's one of the great joys, especially folk music, right? Where you go like, there's people, there's certain places in the world where people are just disproportionately good at stuff, and they don't even know that they are. You know, and I love that. I love that like you go to weird places where it's like, does everybody here play the mandolin in Nashville? Like, what's going on? Like, and you know, and like all the bluegrass kids, you know, in the States, whatever. And but yeah, Newfoundland for sure, to answer your question, 100%. How's it going?
Yeah, alive or dead, who are the top 4 musicians you'd invite over for a kitchen party?
Oh, musicians.
Yes.
Oh, Prince.
Yeah.
He's a genius. Eddie Van Halen. Okay, I've got to pick some alive people. Mahalia Jackson, Harry Belafonte. Two of my favorite singers. Annie Lennox. And Natalie McMaster. They're pretty good. That'll be a good supper. Yeah. Huh. Imagine, yeah. Imagine Annie Lennox singing while Natalie played the fiddle. That'd be pretty good. I'd cook for that.
I think we have time for, over here.
Alan, I was lured to Newfoundland in 1973.
Oh, how come?
Well, it's a long story, but one of the things that lured me there was the promise that Tale Harbour, the north side of the harbor, had a different accent from the south side of the harbor.
Sure did.
And I convinced myself I could hear that. Is it still the case?
Well, I talked about this in my first book. So Petty Harbour in my grandparents' time was completely divided down the middle. All the Anglicans and all the Protestants were all on one side, and all the Catholics were on the other. Very English traditions on that side, very Irish on this side. And the dialects were starting to meld in my grandmother's, but they would have come from different places. Like most of the Anglican Protestants in my part of Newfoundland came from the south coast of England, right? So they would have come from Devon, I guess, and Dorset or whatever in the south coast of England. And then, of course, the Irish gang all came from, Cork and Waterford and that. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine two accents and dialects that are nothing alike, right? So, and then so those two cultures would have been very different from each other. And in my grandparents' time, they fought like dogs, and they would meet on the bridge in Petty Harbour. And even when I was a kid, like there was, 40 or 50 kids around my age that lived in Petty Harbour, but 20 of us went to one school and 20 of us went to a different school. Like, how stunned is that? You know what I mean? And they should have just because they didn't want they wanted all the, what was my joke all the time? They want all the flavor of Christianity without those calories of the Pope. I also have a religious studies degree. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome.
I was born in Corner Brook,
Beautiful.
and my mom was from the East Coast, and I grew up with kitchen party after kitchen party.
Yeah.
But I moved from Newfoundland when I was 3 years old to Ontario. My dad got a job at GM, and we moved to Ontario.
Cambridge or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To Cambridge, Ontario, or Oshawa, yeah.
Oshawa, Ontario.
Yeah.
And the kitchen party stuck with us, though, and there's a lot of relatives in Ontario that I grew up from 3 years old to whenever, and there was always music around our table. There was always somebody with a biscuit and a cup of tea or whatever, and there was always the music. And my kids, who are now in their 30s, they're all musicians. I have 3 sons. They're all musicians, and they still go back to that time that we brought to them.
Oh yeah, many times. I've been around the Trinity Bay part and the Bonavista Bay part lots, because friends of mine live there and of course it's that I talk about it in the book, to go out, to Trinity Bay and make your way through Trinity proper, and then go on the other side, to go out to the point where Bonavista is and all that stuff, and Elliston and those places. Fabulous, just like fabulous places. And Trinity proper, is one of the places I talk about in the book that probably is up there with Fogo for the instant that the cod moratorium came, and they had these. Do you remember the term lip grant? Does that make a sense to you? I said this the other day, and someone told me what LIP stand, Local Improvement Program or something. Does that make sense? Yeah. Well, in the 90s, after when the cod moratorium came, the big things to get if you wanted the program to replace income from the fishery was also called lip grants. And so what did people do? What did towns do with them? For example, in Fairyland, they started researching and went into the archaeological dig that I talk about in the books. Fabulous in Fairyland. Then in Trinity was the funniest, coolest one, is that they instantly went, okay, we're going to become a theater place, and they started teaching fishermen how to act in Shakespeare plays. I'm dead serious. And Mark Critch, my friend Mark, who's, in this hour's 20 minutes, Mark was 18 at the time, and his first job was when he graduated school and he'd done some theater acting. He got a job in Trinity, at the Trinity pageant, teaching fishermen how to act. And you got to sometime, if you live 2 more weeks, find a night where you can sit with Mark Critch and get Mark to tell you about being in Trinity in 1992 or whatever it was, and it is mind-blowing. What a culture shock it was. Just this little towny kid going out around a bay. If I profanes with my most unworthiest hand this holy shrine, the gentle sin is this. Me 2 lips blushing pilgrims ready stand to soothe that rough touch with a tender kiss. Etc. Sorry. So sorry. So yeah, question.
Well, speaking of theater, do you have any behind the scenes or something crazy that happened while you were in your runs of Tale Harbour?
Oh, so many.
Exciting events or something that
Oh yeah, I wrote, along with 3 other people, wrote this musical called Tale Harbour, and it debuted in 2022 at the Charlottetown Festival, and they loved it. And this company called Mervish in Toronto brought it back, and we mounted it this summer in Charlottetown, and to bring it to Mervish in September and October, November, which we did, and it just was just rammed. People loved it, and I'm so grateful that they did. But of course, my name is on the poster, and I'm play the guy, right? But of course, I'd never done it before. I had no idea I'd never been in a play. And I was now to be the lead actor in a piece of musical theater. And so it was a very steep learning curve. And all the mistakes, every mistake you could make, I made it, twice, and even, did you know that upstage and downstage are not the way you think? Did you know that? Yeah. It's not what you think, it's the other way around. Seriously. Yeah, and so I had to learn all of that. And of course, people in theater, because I was Johnny Famous, right? Especially the first time in Charlottetown, because they didn't really know me. And they thought, Johnny Rockstar is coming in, hope he's nice or whatever. And I'm just there somebody show up, okay, don't give him notes or whatever, It's oh, give me notes. Oh, Jesus. I'm going to set fire to the place. Please just steer me where I'm supposed to stand. But it was very interesting, if you don't mind me taking 5 minutes to tell you about it, because I found it fascinating. I thought that because I, have, quite a bit of time fronting bands and singing songs and the like, that, and acting in film and television, a little bit of that, I figured it would be an easy transition to doing live theater, right? And I assumed that all the lessons I had learned fronting a band and all that stuff would be helpful. And in about 5 minutes, I learned that not only are they not helpful, they're actually harmful. It was very interesting, and I was so glad I didn't know that, because I probably would never have done it. But like, and the way I describe it is like, you know, every night with the band, if you're the front guy in the band, your job is to walk out on stage, survey the crowd, and as quickly as you possibly can, decide what that crowd wants done tonight. And then lead, and then surrender to it. And then craft what you're doing up here to make this night great for them. If they want more fiddle solos, well, Kendall will play more fiddle. And then, or if they like, you know, Corey's guitar playing, well, sure, more of that. Or they like ballads and stories about Nan, sure, we'll tell more of those. And like, it's yours to mold every night. And that's awesome, so fun. And you walk out on stage in a play that's timed to the 16th note, and I'm supposed to hand Dorothy the book on the tur of better. And if I give it to her on the b, she's not going to be there. It'll fall on the floor. But also the thing like, you can't reward yourself for anything, which I found terrifying. So you go out and you do your 2 lines to your character and people laugh and you go, oh shit. You've already shagged up the play. I'm so serious. Like you can't, and I could talk about this for hours. I found it so interesting how like, but the way I describe it lately in my own mind is the circumstances when you come to, let's say, the concert, or like I'll say here right now, we're all in the same circumstances, right? It's Monday or whatever it is, and we're in Vancouver, and we're all here, right? But when you go to a play, the circumstances that these people are in and the circumstances that Frank are completely different, right? These are real circumstances. The circumstances that we're doing up here are imagined, right? And they're fixed. And they're not the same. And so if every night in the band I can surrender to the audience, which I love doing, because then you can just please people and do whatever. But every night in the play you have to surrender to the play. And that is terrifying if we're used to surrendering to the audience, to go out there and go like, this might not go well. Okay.
Here we go.
2 acts to go. And I found that terrifying. Yeah. But I loved it. You know, I just loved the whole form of it. It was fascinating but a completely different skill set. Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Mine's not a question. I just wanted to say thank you to you.
Oh, thank you.
I've met you twice in my life.
What's your name?
Jesse.
Hey, man, nice to see you. Thanks for sticking with us.
With PEI, and I met you in Seattle. I just wanted to say thank you to you because I've had 18 major surgeries in my life.
Well, you're looking good.
Well, thank you. I've had 14 on my feet and my legs.
14 on your legs?
On the legs.
Well, you're getting around good. Well played yourself. You walk better than me, and I never had no leg operations.
But you have been my saving grace for the last 30 years.
Well done. Well said.
Every time I feel like just discouraged that I don't want to like try harder to continue on with life, all I hear every time I'm down is I hear, I am the fountain.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. Congratulations. Well done. And you're looking good too. Stood up some quick. That was good operations.
Yeah. Okay,
Doctors.
I think we're going to have to get wrapped up because
What?
we need time for book signings.
I thought we were going to tell stories.
No stories tonight. But
This
yeah,
is the problem with this format for me. I can't stop
indeed,
talking.
I understand.
Thank you very much.
Well, my pleasure. This book
How
is
about a round of applause
joy
for-
and a tonic. I really loved it. So, get a copy.
Thanks, everybody. I think this is going to be the for anybody. I signed some of the books earlier, if you got some, or if anybody wants like a signy book, you know, a personalized book or something. I feel like I'm saying stuff that Jorge knows how to say better than me, and so I will be available to sign. Well, whatever. I mean, you know, like if anybody wants terrible carpentry done, I'm available for that as well. If you want, what's that? A closing song. Okay, sure. See, you surrender to the audience. I'm going to. We'll do this one. You can help me. I know you can. I'm a son of a sea cook. I'm a cook on a trader. I can dance, I can sing, and I can reef the main boom. I can handle a jigger, and I cuts a fine figure whenever I gets in a boat standing room. And we'll rant and we'll roar like true Newfoundlanders. We'll rant and we'll roar on deck and below, until we strikes bottom inside the two sunkers, when straight to the channel the Toslow we'll go. And farewell and adieu to ye young maids of Alan, and O'Dearn and Peresk, Foxhole and Bruley, all real places, by the way. And I'm bound for the westward, and this is one of my favorite ones, to the wall with the hole in. That's an actual place. I'm bound for the westward, to the wall with the hole in. I can't marry y'all or a chokey, I'll be all together. Well, we'll rant and we'll roar like true Newfoundlanders. We'll rant and we'll roar on deck and below, until we strikes bottom inside the two sunkers, when straight through the channel the Toslow will go. And when straight through the channel the Toslow will go. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks to Dorothy. Give her a round of applause. Thank you very much.